That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. Ben, this is a historic episode
Yeah.
of the CME. First of all, we're back on Monday for the first time in a couple years after a successful pledge month. We aim to keep it that way. Thanks so much to everybody who signed up during the month of May. You're the lifeblood of this show. You're the beating heart of this shit. So we appreciate all of your support, everybody who signed up. If you haven't signed up, head on over to patreon.com/co-main event. We have a lot of new stuff we're kicking off this month. We have some fun stuff coming up, including a live watch party for the UFC's event at the White House next Sunday. So you can jump on for that if you're interested.
Is it
Second of
really
all,
next Sunday?
it's a week
Jesus.
from Sunday. Really snuck up on you, didn't it?
It really does, man. I mean, we've been talking about it forever for our entire natural lives, it seems. And now you're telling me get ready because it's next Sunday.
Second of all, if you are one of those people who signed up at the $20 annual subscription level, you're going to hear Are You Fucking Kidding Me and Just Saying Stuff
Oh,
this week.
man.
Making its triumphant return again after some time. The people voted for it. I wanted to say it's back by popular demand, but really what happened is they bribed us.
Yep.
They bribed us to bring back Are You Fucking Kidding Me and Just Saying Stuff.
For future reference, a great way to get us to do stuff you want us to do. Just from now on, maybe let's just skip straight to the bribery phase instead of the let's berate Chad and Ben on various social media platforms until they do what we want. Instead, let's just go right to the, we are openly corrupt. Give us that money. We will do what you want phase of this whole thing. I got to tell you, though, Chad, sitting here talking to you on a Monday, getting ready to deliver an Are You Fucking Kidding Me later on, I'm going, what year is it? I feel like I'm in a damn time warp.
Yeah, no, I know. I feel younger all the time. I can't wait for tomorrow to get up. I just get better looking every day. That's how I'm feeling.
Got me looking around for my Android phone. Where did I put it?
Well, maybe speaking of which, Ben, it's been a weird time for the UFC all around so far this year, 2026. We moved over to Paramount. We killed off the pay-per-view. There's more competition now in the marketplace than there has been in a while. We're coming out of this event over in Macau last weekend, and we're headed into this weekend's event where Bilal Muhammad is going to go out there and try to get his first win since winning the title. Next weekend, as we said, we got D Titty's big birthday boy bash over there at the White House. UFC is going to be
D Titties. What? That makes them seem too cool.
what,
Come
D
on.
Titty? You like that?
Yeah. No, I don't
See,
like it.
I mean, it's sort of a like there's a double meaning though, right? Because it also kind of makes him sound like P Diddy, D Titty.
And I mean, it just seems like if he found out you were calling him D Titty, he'd love it. He'd
You
fucking
think?
love it. I think he would love it. And I think that we can't have that.
Okay, well, let's hope he doesn't find out, I guess. Basically, the UFC has an event scheduled for nearly every weekend for the rest of the summer. Many of them are fairly anonymous fight nights, but we've also got the White House coming up. We got Conor McGregor's alleged return. In the middle of August, you got the return of Mackenzie Dern as well. But there is some noticeable discontent in what appears to be like a fairly significant portion of the fan base at this point. Of course, the UFC's point of view is that everything is going great because they're just making more money than ever all the time. You raised this question to me this morning during our detailed and lengthy pre-production meeting for this show, which we always have. You said, is this a turning point kind of summer for the UFC in good and bad ways? Why don't you tell us what you mean by that?
Well, The and good and bad ways seems like that's what is yet to be decided, because it does seem like we find the UFC going into this the summer of 2026, summer of love, summer of AI brain slop, whatever it turns out to be, maybe last summer. Who knows? Uh, we find the UFC approaching this summer sort of at an interesting precipice, because we definitely now 6 months and so into the year, it feels like we're noticing this is what it feels like to be in the TKO era of
Hmm.
UFC and the WWE. I think like both of those brands are sort of noticing like, okay, it feels like something different is happening under TKO ownership, and we don't necessarily love all of it. It also feels like the UFC is going into some big nights coming up, some big single events. This White House thing, we spoke on Friday's Power Hour about the potential for this thing to be a sort of polarizing event in a
Yeah.
lot of different ways, and in a way that brands the UFC, possibly for a long time, as Donald Trump's cage fighting thing. That is how it's probably going to be received by a lot of people. A lot of normies, a lot of people who aren't even at bitch ass casual level. A lot of people who maybe have heard of the UFC, don't really know much about it. Whether they check in on these fights or not, they are going to get it in their heads now that they've seen this giant structure going up on the White House lawn. Oh, the UFC, that's that Trump cage fighting thing. Now, that might increase its appeal for some segment of the population. If you pay attention to polling data in American politics at all, you know it's not been going great for your boy headed toward his 80th birthday here on June 14th. Even among young men, support is cratering as they look around and go, wait a minute, shit ain't got cheaper at the grocery store or the gas pump. And now you're going to have this event where you see this thing with the concert, right? Like this Freedom 250 concert thing that they were doing, where they announced this lineup only to have a lot of people who were announced on the lineup, a lot of the artists go, oh, no, I don't think so. I will not be doing that. I did not know that's what I had signed up for. No, thank you. Millie fucking Vanilli, Chad,
Hmm.
does not want its amazing brand to be associated with this event, and made that clear right away. That tells you something about how this shit is being perceived. And so for the UFC to have like a night all alone to itself, everybody's already talking about it once they saw the physical reminder being erected, like a giant physical reminder that you cannot ignore, erected on the White House lawn. You're gonna get some associations with that stick to you probably for a while. And so that's going to be one big part of it, right? Then you're going to turn around the next month in an event that is honestly much closer to the UFC, the actual birthday of America, than this one is, at the UFC 329 event, the return of Conor McGregor, allegedly. I know you're of the let me know when they're both in the cage
Look,
school of thought on this
I
one.
just want to be safe, Just
Yeah,
say allegedly if we're not sure,
yeah.
right? I'm
The
just going to say
alleged
allegedly until we're proven wrong.
the alleged return of Conor McGregor at UFC 329 on July 11th. And that feels like the UFC is trying to recapture some magic, right? Like, we're
Hmm.
doing International Fight Week. We're trying to remind people, hey, I know we haven't had a ton of big championship fights so far this year. There's been a lot of complaints about how seldom even ranked fighters are being booked these days, how there's a lot of champions that have been kind of inactive. But this is us popping out and showing them. Show you that the UFC can still do big International Fight Week kind of shit, and it's going to use the biggest star in the history of the business, albeit at a time when a lot of his aura seems to have diminished. And so that is also going to seem like a little bit of a litmus test. Can you still create that feeling? Can you still own that week the way you used to? Uh, I think that'll be an interesting test. Plus, you're just like doing a lot. You can tell that you can always tell when the UFC is kind of ramping up, because you look at how many of the upcoming events are at the Apex. Not that many. You got this one this weekend. You've got one toward the end of June, and then you don't have another one until August, and in the meantime, you're going all over the world. We're going to Washington, D.C. We're going to, of course, the granddaddy of them all, the National Gymnastics Arena in Baku, Azerbaijan. You're going to Oklahoma City, Abu Dhabi, Belgrade, Serbia, Philadelphia, Shanghai. That's the kind of summer you've got lined up for yourself. So it seems like we should be kind of kicking into gear a little bit here, but also at a time when people are going to, I think, be watching the UFC a little more closely to be like, where is this thing at? Is this thing still cool? I think that's
Mhm.
going to be an interesting question going into this for the UFC, because I'll tell you right now, Chad, I think often, especially when you made your bones off being a counterculture brand, a we don't give a fuck kind of brand, we're going out here slinging leather, blood on the canvas, cage fight kind of shit, and then you end up being best friends with the president of the United States, it's kind of hard to maintain that same sort of cool edginess to your
Yeah.
brand, especially
And yet
when
and yet Dana White is still trying to do it, right? Like
he's still
Dana White is
claiming he's doing it.
well, he's still trying to maintain the if you don't like it, you don't have to fucking watch it, fuck you kind of a thing. But all I was going to say is that it hits different
Yeah.
from the place that the UFC is right now than it did, say, 15 years ago.
You're right, and I think part of that, like when you're talking about the way Dana White still tries to embody that attitude, there's a subtle and yet meaningful difference in the "fuck you, we won't do what you tell me" kind of Rage Against the Machine vibe of the
Mhm.
early UFC, like, "Hey, we're pushing this thing through. We're a freight train from hell. It's gaining momentum, fastest growing sport in the world." There's a difference between "fuck you" and "I don't give a shit," which is the thing he's been saying most often in regards to any criticisms or questions now. "I
Yeah.
don't give a shit." He keeps saying it over and over and over again, kind of not even realizing what you're saying, especially because it's like, yeah, man, from the outside, we are looking at you and it does seem like you don't give a shit, but in like a lazy, complacent kind of way, and not like I'm a reckless maverick gonna do whatever I want, and you can either get on board or you can get out of the way. Like that's what it feels like now. There's a just a different there's a vibe switch happening here,
Yeah.
Chad.
I hadn't really thought of it until this moment, but it strikes me that there is perhaps a parallel to be made. Perhaps Conor McGregor's return is alleged return, excuse me, is perhaps a metaphor for what's happening with the UFC right now. Both used to be really cool, used to put on these big shows. Both have proven to be somewhat unseemly over their recent history. And now Conor McGregor's coming back to see if he can still do the stuff that Conor McGregor used to do. And here's the UFC headed into this summer where it feels kind of like whether or not the UFC can prove that it can still do big events and it can still quote unquote be cool or interesting might reverberate a little bit, at least through the end of this year, maybe for the foreseeable future. One thing that I wonder is how we will know if this is a successful summer for the UFC or if it is an unsuccessful summer for the UFC. And I think here's what I was thinking. And we haven't heard anything about this yet, but can you imagine if the UFC has kind of a dud of a summer and then MVP comes back in the fall with some other Rousey versus Carano style cultural sort of event? I don't know who they would get to do that. I don't know what fighters are out there, but I feel like it would be kind of meaningful if the UFC limps through this summer and is still sort of floundering in its relationship with like a failing presidential administration, and then MVP were to come back and do something else that really captured people's imagination. I feel like if at that point you could look at the state of the UFC. And obviously, it ain't like they're about to go out of business, right? They seem to be
Yeah.
doing okay in that regard. But I feel like if that happened, you might look at it and the tiniest possible alarm bells should be going off with people at that point.
Well, see, that was going to be my question is even if the UFC did have a relative dud of a summer, doesn't it seem because of the way that they have structured things for themselves financially and, to to the credit of the executives, I guess they feathered a nice little nest for themselves. But don't you think that that would make it so that the UFC ownership, the TKO executives, might be pretty slow to realize that you had a dud of something? Like, what would it take? Because if you're making $1 billion a year from
Yeah.
Paramount, if Azerbaijan and Belgrade and Shanghai are all paying you just to bring the show there, even if the mood here in North America softened on you a little bit, even if
Yeah.
they're just the enthusiasm gap started to show itself a little bit, you still would be making so much money, and that seems to be the only metric that they're going by is each quarterly earnings. I don't know if they would see that. I don't know if they would notice it. I think we would notice it. Like, we would feel, as fans and people who talk about this shit every week, we would notice a diminishing enthusiasm way before they would. And I think that it
Yeah.
would make them pretty slow to react to stuff like that. I also think, you mentioned, like, what if they come out here, have an underwhelming summer, MVP comes back hard? What if you do this big UFC White House thing that you've been promoting the hell out of forever, and you don't beat MVP's numbers? You don't get those kind of viewership numbers.
Yeah. Are we 100% certain what where this is being broadcast? The White
I'm
House event?
I mean, I don't know if we're certain about which parts are on which thing, right? Because so far, all it seems for sure is that if you have Paramount Plus, you'll be able to watch the whole thing. Now they've suggested
Yeah.
that at least part of it is going to be on CBS. We've seen how they've done with some like of the recent pay-per-views where they'll put some portion of the undercard on CBS and then tell you, to switch over to Paramount Plus. With this one, don't you think you'd want to just do the whole thing on CBS? I mean, I understand you think you're going to drive some subscriptions on Paramount, but it also seems like you guys, you put a whole lot of shit out there for this one. You know, you built an entire big ass thing. Don't you want to have as many people as possible see it? Especially if you're going to sit there and tell me with a straight face, even though we know you lying, that this is a celebration of America. It's like you can't do the Super Bowl and be like, but you gotta sign up for this niche streaming service. Like, we still have this like kind of mentality in America. There's some shit that you gotta put out there for everybody. If it's big enough, if you tell us that it's an important enough thing, you can't put it behind some kind of paywall. You gotta put it out there for the masses. And it feels like this should be that kind of a thing.
All right. I'm looking right now at paramountplus.com/sneak peek,
Okay.
which appears to be maybe some manner of blog platform that they
Is that
have.
where you go to check out what's coming up this next season on Tulsa King?
Tyler Perry's Divorced Sisters is one of the top it's in the carousel up here at the top, as is Dutton Ranch,
This
Survivor, Landman. This is all stuff that it gives you the opportunity to click on. That's trending up at the top.
Okay.
So
This season on Tulsa King, Sly Stallone's character forgets who or where he is because he is 1,000,000 years old.
this will give you an idea of what kind of content we're dealing with at Sneak Peek from Paramount Plus. The headline of the story is UFC at the White House, where to watch.
Okay.
So I think we're trying to pick up a lot of readers maybe off search engine optimization.
Does that even still work anymore? I think that
how they
model
found
is
me.
dead.
That's how they found me, brother.
Okay. But you're old, so
here it says I did a search. The CBS does not appear anywhere on this page. It says where to watch live. You can watch UFC at the White House live on Paramount Plus on Sunday, June 14th, 2026, with a Paramount Plus subscription. The cost to watch is your Paramount Plus subscription. Your subscription comes complete with live stream and on-demand access. Plans start at $8.99 per month. There is no pay-per-view added charge. So that's at the Paramount Plus website. It says that.
Okay. Well, I mean, we knew that you were always going to be able to watch on Paramount Plus. The question is, whether we'll be able to watch other play. I mean, you got to think they're gonna put some portion of it out there, right?
The
On
main
CBS.
okay, well, all right. I know you're gonna hate me for this, right? But I Googled it and I'm gonna read you the AI summary that's at the top. Okay?
Okay.
Don't be mad.
I might get mad.
The main card of the UFC White House will not air on CBS. It streams exclusively on Paramount Plus. UFC CEO Dana White confirmed that while some prelims may be broadcast on CBS, the headline fights require a Paramount Plus subscription and will not be available on traditional network television. That seems like exactly the opposite of what you'd probably want to do to me.
Yeah. Especially because this is a short fight card by UFC standards, right? You got uh what, 7 fights? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? What I'm looking at right now. So it's like, even telling me the prelims, like where do you draw the line that this is a prelim and this is a main card fight with this one? I don't even know, because it seems like, I guess you would draw it where Josh Hokett and Derek Lewis would be the first main card fight. That's what seems intuitively right to me, which would lead Michael Chandler on the on the prelims,
Oh,
which,
Mike.
just one more kick in the balls for Michael Chandler's aspirations here. And that, so you'd have Diego Lopez, Steve Garcia, Bo Nickel, Kyle Dawkins, and Mauricio Hufi and Michael Chandler as the prelims, and then the good shit on. And it's like, I I understand that you probably feel like Paramount has got to be sitting there like, hey, Billy a year, bro, we need some signups. The
Are
signups
you
need to start
using the
rolling in.
UFC? Are you using the UFC White House card to drive Paramount Plus subscriptions? Because I mean,
If you're not, I can see how uh, Paramount would be sort of like, hey, this is maybe the opportunity we've been looking for. But
yeah,
that also makes it seem to me more likely that you would not beat the Netflix MVP card.
no. I mean, maybe your prelim card if people are just watching it on television, but I wouldn't think you were going to beat it with the main card on Paramount Plus at all.
But that's the thing, is you have to beat it. Yeah, if you want to keep throwing your big swinging balls around in this industry, you're the worldwide leader. You're the foremost MMA platform in the world, and you're doing this event that has gotten a lot of free publicity just because people are going, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
You have to be able to beat Netflix's, "Hey, you guys remember Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano fight card?" He had not a single real relevant fight for today's MMA landscape on that card. You got to beat that. You absolutely must beat that.
Well, remember MVP kind of took him to the cleaners just announcing the card, right? The Ronda Rousey Gina Carano card. We were all like, "Oh, that's very interesting." And the UFC White House card, when it got announced, seemed like a joke. Seemed like you had to be like, "Are you serious about this, bro?" And then the UFC, I don't know if it felt any kind of heat or not, but it did sort of scramble to put together Derek Lewis versus Josh Hokett kind of at the last minute. So I just wonder, number one, I wonder how close of attention the actual suits at TKO are paying to this. You know what I mean? Are they sitting back with their feet on a big pile of money saying we get that $1 billion even if we do a bad job? That's our quote, right? Are they doing that? Or are there some people there who are sort of like, I don't know if that's the best idea for us to hitch our wagon to what's happening in the White House right now. It doesn't seem like a great deal for us. Or do they just not give a shit? Because, like I have said a ton of times before, there's nobody at this company that cares where the brand is in 5 years. Are they just sitting back thinking we got our money already and it doesn't matter what happens from here on out? Because I'd be worried if I worked at Paramount.
Yeah.
I'd be worried about that. But if you're the UFC, are any of these guys sweating this at all?
You know, I would think that you got to be sweating it at least a little bit. It is too late now to back away from the full-on Trump association that you're doing. You've already been doing it on the broadcast. I mean, the thing that I think will be way different about this one is that we inside the MMA bubble have gotten used to it to a degree. Whether we like it or not, we've heard from plenty of people who write into this podcast say like it has driven me away from the sport. I won't watch these events because I know how hard they're going to go on the Trump glazing every time he's there, and they find it off-putting. And so, but the surprise is gone from there. The novelty, like we know that that's going to happen. We're used to it. We've either made our peace with it or haven't. Other people don't know that that is happening in the UFC. And so I think that they will tune in and they will get a lesson in how hard the UFC goes in that direction. That it's not just we happen to be doing it as a venue on the White House lawn, that we are just politically and ideologically aligned here. And so I think that there's got to be some blowback to that. And I don't know if they even realize the extent that that is possible right now, because I think that they are also in this bubble. And like you said, I don't think there's a ton of concern about a really long-term strategy for this thing. It's making it make more money next quarter than it made last quarter. But I do think that if you come out of this thing and you don't just absolutely kill it with views and getting everybody to talk about your shit. Remember, you're also going to be doing this at a time where, you'll be, for one thing, you could be very well up against game 6 of the NHL finals, the NBA finals, the World Cup, all this kind of stuff is happening. And if you come out with a thing that already sort of like, because of its political associations and because it's on a still somewhat niche streaming service, that you sort of whittle away at your possible audience for this thing, I think maybe you might come out of it and be like, all right, a little bit of an adjustment might be in order. But maybe that's just wishful thinking on my part. I don't know.
It's just a coincidence that it's on this night. It was the one night the White House lawn was available.
Yeah. Well, see,
It's a
and this
coincidence.
the thing is too, like, I'm sure that we will, in the next couple weeks leading up to this thing, we will get a lot of like, hey, just watch the fights. The fights are going to be awesome. And when you do step back, like I was hearing from somebody today after I wrote about this on my Substack, and they were like, I know what you mean, but I'm also like, Chama, man, I Ilya Topuria, I want to see those fights. And I'm like, brother, I'm right there with you. I want to see those fights too. It's going to be some good shit there. I think there's a lot of people right now telling themselves they won't watch, but actually will end up watching, especially if they already have Paramount Plus. And so I get it. I get sort of like that the UFC is going to be telling us, for the people who are mad, hey, it's going to be great fights and everything. I also think, though, that if your argument is going to be, hey, forget the politics and just enjoy some fights on this night, you're not going to give us even a glimmer of a chance to avoid or forget the politics. That's just not going to be an option here, man,
Right.
because of, this is a fraught time for the American Republic. And, based on our past experiences with this, like, you think they're going to do an event on the White House lawn on Trump's birthday and they're going to dial their Trump glazing down? Oh, no. No. There's no possible way that's going to happen. And so, like, they're not going to give you the option to ignore the politics. That part is going to be front and center throughout the entire thing. And so then once you're in that, you're really in it, man. People are going to remember the UFC as the Trump fighting thing. And I also put this in the Substack. Remember when we saw there was like a poll that came out or something about how many women would consider it a red flag in dating that somebody was a regular Joe Rogan podcast listener, or a big Joe Rogan fan. Like that sort of guilt by association sort of thing, that has a real chance of sticking to the UFC here. And especially when you're dealing with a president who has sort of historically high unfavorability ratings, it's like that cannot come without any cost whatsoever. It's just, I think the UFC or the TKO doing the math and being like, the benefits of being the president's good friends outweighs the cost for us.
Okay, here's a question. It's really easy to imagine how weird this event is going to be. It's really easy to imagine that there could be a rash of negative press coverage immediately after it. It's really easy to imagine all of that. It's easy to imagine Max Holloway picking Conor McGregor apart over 5 rounds. Just it's really easy to imagine Max Holloway making him look just terrible,
Which
right?
I'm again, I say there is a strong segment of the MMA population that is here for that.
Yeah.
They will tune in hoping for that.
So it's really easy to imagine all of that stuff. What is our best case scenario? How will we get to the fall and be like, that went really well for the UFC? Like, what does that even look like?
I mean, it presupposes that we're wrong about a bunch of shit, which,
Yeah,
in fairness, has happened before.
it has happened before. We did a whole show about it about 4 weeks ago.
I mean, we also came away convinced that we were basically right, you know?
Yeah. We came away convinced that the only time we've been wrong is the last time we thought we were wrong.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, it's hard for me to completely imagine the scenario where the UFC does this event at the White House. People go, hell yeah, I love this company and feel great about supporting it. I mean, I think that it's entirely possible you could get some great moments. You could get some
Yeah.
great fights out of this one, you know? Uh, People could come away and be like, you get a curiosity viewer just because they heard of the spectacle of this, they watch it and they go, okay, this sport is kind of rad. This is what these guys are doing. Plus, I already signed up for the shit. So, you got 2 more events that month. I mean, basically, I don't know if if you get a 30-day subscription, you sign up on June 14th, you'll still be subscribed by June 11th when McGregor Holloway comes around, and it's like, okay, they create a big fight vibe for that one. Maybe you get locked in, you keep that subscription rolling a little bit longer. So like maybe they do manage to pick up a little bit of steam going into. I also though think if you look, you got 2 titles up on the line at the White House, one of them an interim title,
Mhm.
but still, two UFC belts. Then, Chad, for the rest of the summer, at least as far as things are booked right now, you only have one more title fight currently announced and on the books. Do you know what that title fight is?
That's the Mackenzie Dern fight,
It's
right?
Mackenzie Dern and Jillian Robertson.
That's not till August 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
Not exactly some shit people will be canceling their own weddings for
Yeah.
to stay home and watch that one. So I don't know. It's like you would like to think if you are gonna pick up some momentum here with this event and then the big McGregor International Fight Week thing that follows it, you would like to have some stuff lined up to keep that going. And I don't know if you see that. I think you still see like after this the same criticism that you see in the last few months where everybody's looking at it and being like, where are the ranked fighters? Where are the champions? Where's the good shit? When are you going to get back to doing the good shit? And I don't know. I think that's where you're not really seeing, at least from what we can see, like on the output side, a whole lot of urgency coming out of the UFC.
Yeah, I suppose that it is possible if the fights if you just get a slobber knocker between Derek Lewis and Josh Hokett, if Sean O'Malley or Ayman Zahabi comes out there and just styles on the other guy, if Alex Pereira and Cyril Gahn have a good fight, and then Ilya Tupuria and Justin Gaethje put on a classic for the ages, maybe it's possible that the quality of the fights is able to take center stage, that it outweighs everything else that's happening. But I also wonder, is it possible that what we will see as great fights, the mainstream media will see as ungodly barbarism? You know what I mean? Like, will
Yeah.
we come out of this thing being like, that was amazing, and then the next day all of the like opinion stuff is going to be like unbelievable barbarism at the
Yeah.
White House last night?
I mean, and that is the thing too, because like as I was writing about how I was surprised to see some of the backlash, and I realized, oh, it's because I'm so deep in this bubble. I've been here for 20 goddamn years at this point. I've become desensitized to some of the absurd sensationalism of the fight game, but I've also become desensitized to just what it is, the violence inherent in it. And so you're right that when you pick up some casual viewers, some mainstream curiosity viewers, we come away from some of these fights like we have very fond memories of the time when Joanna and Jacek's head swelled up to where it looked like an alien was going to pop out of it, and we were like, "What a fight!
Yeah.
What a great night that was!" And a lot of people might come away from that one being like, "I am appalled, and I don't think that this should be allowed anymore." So that's entirely possible too. You never know exactly what you're going to get when you make a lot of these fights. I think it's also entirely likely and possible that you go into this thing where you're saying it's a celebration of America. Your heavyweight interim title fight features, a Brazilian and a Frenchman. Your lightweight title main event features a fight where the American is, let's say, likely to get knocked out by the Spanish Georgian champion. That some people will be like, wait a minute, is this what I came here for? Like, I, you're right that other people won't necessarily see what we see
Yeah.
because of how like used to it we are, and how like we know what to expect going in, and so it's probably less shocking for us.
I mean, and the other thing I wonder is, let's say that this is just the worst case scenario summer for the UFC, whatever that means. And in fact, if you look at like the biggest complaints that actual hardcore MMA bubble fans have about the UFC, I don't even know if they can address those complaints during the summer, right? Because our complaints are basically like, it's just a bunch of dog shit fight nights. And every now and then you throw us Conor McGregor's return, which may or may not be good, right? I don't even know if they can address those concerns really during the summer. Let's just say it goes terribly for them. The White House fights are terrible. It's weird as hell. Zach Brown sings "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" to Donald Trump. We give D Titty a championship belt in the middle of
No,
the cage, and
no.
everybody's just can't stop talking about how weird and bad it is. Say Conor McGregor stinks up the joint. I mean, if that happens and the UFC gets to the fall or early next year and is like, all right, Islam Makhachev is back, Alexander Volkanovski is back, Sean Strickland's going to defend the middleweight title, Tom Aspinall's eye is better and he's back. Here's Kayla Harrison and Amanda doing their fight. Like, can they just get it? Can they snap their fingers and get it back? Because I feel like they probably could if they wanted to, at least for people like us. The
Yeah,
question is, maybe do they care enough to try to do that?
yeah, because that is the thing too. Like when you think about how, like I just said, how you have 3 title fights on the books for this summer. Not one of them is the kind of title fight where we go, here we go, number 1 versus number 2 in the world, and we're gonna fucking find out. This is the one we've been talking about and waiting for, an inevitable sort of feeling like where it's like the clash of these 2 guys who had to meet. These are the only 2 people who could fight for this belt right now. Not one of them is like that. The closest is Ilya Topuria and Justin Gaethje, just because Justin Gaethje has the interim strap, and because we always like to watch Justin Gaethje fight. He's never going to give you a boring fight. He's well liked within the MMA community, and we respect what he does. And so that one is the closest that you get to that kind of feeling. But right now, you don't really have anything else coming up like that where we're going, this is what the UFC does better than anybody, is takes the very best in the world and matches them up against each other. And it would be nice to see a little bit more urgency and a little bit more of like a drive to make those big fights happen. And instead, what you hear whenever you hear Dana White talking is he talks like he's crushing it. He's no one could he couldn't possibly be doing it any better. All the fights the fans want to see, he said, I've pretty much doing a lot of heavy lifting. And so like to the extent that we are all sitting around here being like, put your foot on the gas, bros, let's go. And Dana White is sitting there with his arm hanging out the open window of the Camaro, just one hand on the steering wheel, listening to Free Fallin' by Tom Petty and going, this is great. This couldn't be better. So there's like a disconnect there.
Yeah,
Is what I'm saying.
yeah. I think they'll have a lot of bullets in the gun. in the fall and early next year. And I guess the question is, do they want to fire them or not? Remember, you're listening to the Co-Main Event podcast proper. This show drops every Monday afternoon for free in your timelines and podcast libraries. But if you want even more of the Co-Main Event podcast, myself, Ben Folks, you can find us all week over on Patreon. Hit us up at patreon.com/co-main event. Get loads of extra audio and video content, as well as access to our official Discord message board where they're talking about fights and a lot of other stuff literally all the time. We're about to kick off a couple of new things over there. We're going to have the return of the TV and movie club for $20 patrons. I believe we're going to put a poll up this week to allow people to vote on what the first installment of the TV and movie club will be. We are also going to be kicking off very soon our rewatch of season 1 of The Wire. That will also be available for $20 patrons. And remember, if you get in at any level, you can attend the White House live watch party with us coming up on June 14th. So head over to patreon.com/co-main event. Join the team. We think you will have fun. We would love to have you over there.
Chad, you know what else they can be a part of is when they join, listen to the Power Hour on Fridays, they can get down with our betting segment, $20 we never want to see again. You know why I bring this up this particular week?
I don't recommend them taking anything from it. It's for entertainment purposes only. I don't recommend them using it as a guiding light for their lives. Let's just say that.
You're talking like somebody who definitely did not cash his long-standing bet on PSG to win the Champions League for a second year in a row. Ben Folks hits that bet. Come on. I think that sports gambling is good again. I was on the fence about it for a few weeks there when I was in the red, but now that I am solidly back in the black, I have decided this is the way, the truth, the life. I am all about that sports gambling, Chad. It's a great thing. I don't know why everybody doesn't do it.
Opinions of Ben Folks do not necessarily represent the opinions of Co-Main Event Podcast LLC. Well, like we do about this time, let's do a little bit of listener mail.
Listener mail.
First piece of listener mail this week comes to us from our guy Darkwing Duck, who writes in to say, I agree the rise of RAF has been an interesting story in combat sports over the last few months, and have been surprised that the UFC seems so open to letting its athletes go compete there. I'm wondering if stuff like Marab breaking his nose in a match against Frankie Edgar could impact that. Last thing Dana wants is for his capital G guys going over there and getting injured. Please discourse. Man, a fly lands on that Rob Dwalishvili nose, and it breaks at this point.
Yeah, but I mean, we've all seen that nose. Brother, you ain't breaking that thing any more than it's already been broke. You know, it's him breaking his nose is just a way to know he's competing. You know, that ain't nothing. But I do think that, especially if you got guys out here wrestling Arman Sarukian who might just fucking German suplex you onto the pavement at any point, there's a non-zero chance some ACLs get torn, maybe some plans get fucked up as a result of RAF participation, and then I could see the UFC brass taking a different stance on it.
Yeah, so could I. I mean, you start getting some guys hurt over there, and maybe it's not so cool to let your guys go wrestle anymore. I could see that. I could totally see that happening.
Remember when it was a big deal with the UFC trying to get guys to sign like agreements saying that they wouldn't ride motorcycles or shit like that? I remember a bunch of fighters being mad specifically about the riding motorcycles part. They were like, you can't tell me what to do. And it's like, yeah, okay. I mean, they have been telling you what to do for a long time, but the UFC's position was, hey, we got an investment in these guys. If they get hurt that way, they screw up our plans. You guys are out here wrestling. You can always mess something up wrestling. So it's been pretty lucky so far, honestly.
Next question this week comes to us from TK, who writes, how are you not talking about this Logan Storley story? Thanks, TK, for that tongue twister. absolutely surreal, for the love of God discourse. Ben, I assume you have seen these stories that have come out about Logan Storley, longtime Bellator and PFL fighter, arrested and charged with one felony count of sexual battery a couple weeks ago, stemming from an incident at a 3-story bar called the Bull and Whistle in Florida, naturally, that alleges a fairly lengthy and somewhat ugly altercation between
Yeah.
Logan Storley and a woman who worked at the bar.
Well, and it also seems that there were witnesses to this thing. It does, it doesn't seem like you're exactly going on flimsy evidence, because according to this MMA Junkie story, which quotes, I believe, a police report from the Miami Herald, it says that uh, when multiple witnesses saw what was going on and approached him, Storley allegedly fled. The woman then told workers at a nearby strip club, Teasers, what happened. The manager of Teasers saw Storley running naked and detained him until police arrived. So that seems bad. That seems real bad, man.
Yeah, seems bad for Logan Storley and humanity. Let's be honest. All right,
I can't think of anybody for whom it is good. In fact, that is just a bad story all the way around.
all right. I feel like this is going to be a bad story of a slightly more hilarious variety from John Pohl. John has actually sent us a couple of emails about this story to keep us updated. John Pohl writes, I didn't expect my local world and combat sports to overlap quite like this, but here we are. Lou DiBella, yes, that one, owns the minor league baseball team in Richmond. We just got a new stadium. There's all sorts of acrimony over the team and the city and the developer in terms of funding, timing, whatever. It's a shit show, but as you'd expect. Now these are reports from the Richmonder, I believe.
Is it going to
Newspaper out there.
involve Lou DiBella being as reasonable and level-headed as always?
The alleged threat from DiBella, he's threatened a developer here. The alleged threat from DiBella occurred as the heated exchange was wrapping up, as DiBella was leaving. Guillot, who I probably nailed it, is I believe is the developer in this situation, called out, "What are you going to do? Hit me?" DiBella responded unequivocally that he would never hit Guillot. DiBella then repeated an approximate quote from the 1982 film Diner, saying, "But if I did hit you, I'd hit you so hard I'd hurt your whole family." The exact quote from the movie is, I'll hit you so hard I'll kill your whole family," which I believe then there was a court case over that. I wanted to read this important update, which just came out a couple days ago, also in the Richmonder. First of all, the baseball team that Lou DiBella owns is called the Flying Squirrels.
Nice.
So just want to throw that out there.
You own a minor league team. You, as we have established in the past, you gotta have it called something quirky,
Yeah. So this appears to be a dispute over the development of an area in the city called the Diamond District. And so that's where all this comes from. But there is an amusing anecdote in here wherein some developers are up in basically in the suite at the ballpark hanging out. A dog runs in. Lou DiBella's dog is let into the suite. Poops all over the place.
Okay.
And then bites one of the developers on the hand, which Lou DiBella apparently finds hilarious, and is heard to say, "My dog just shit in their suite."
Lou, first of all, do you think Lou DiBella meant to quote the 1982 film Diner? Do you think he was just thinking of some tough guy shit to say, and it happened to be an approximate quote from this movie that is not necessarily one you hear referenced a whole lot? It ain't Goodfellas,
Well, for Lou DiBella, it's probably right in his wheelhouse, though, right? 1982 film. That's probably.
The 1982 film, written and directed by Barry Levinson, about a group of college-age buddies who struggle with their imminent passage to adulthood in 1959 Baltimore. Starring all-star cast Steve Guttenberg, Mickey Rourke, Daniel Stern, Kevin Bacon, Paul Reiser, Ellen Barkin. Yeah, that does seem like that would be Lou DiBella's whole shit right there. I do want to point out, the last time I talked to Lou DiBella, I believe was when I was working on that Heather Hardy story where she was talking about how, she was doing badly. She blamed her time in boxing, had some criticisms of Lou as her promoter at times. I called him up just to be like, hey, want to give you a chance to respond to this stuff before I run it. He didn't want to talk on record, then said he would say some things on record, then at some point just started yelling at me for no reason and told me he thought it was a scumbag move of me to be even talking to Heather, who clearly wanted to talk, who I called her because she had been posting about this nonstop on social media. And it was, to him, a scumbag move to even listen to her and write down her story. So that's what's going on in Lou DiBella's head,
Sounds like you're lucky his dog didn't come in and crap all over your suite, man.
You know what? That's just the kind of thing where if that's a thing your dog does, you are not doing something right as a dog owner. I take my dog places indoors. He's not crapping on the floor indoors. I mean, it takes something going terribly wrong. You know why? Because I have established a set of expectations with that dog, Chad. I feel perhaps Lou has not done that. Or the worst alternative is that he has specifically trained the dog to do that.
That's what I was going to say. Maybe the dog is doing exactly what it's trained to do.
That's worse. That's way worse. You see how that's worse, right?
Yeah, I do. I just want to say, though, that an aging boxing promoter owning a minor league baseball team called the Richmond Flying Squirrels, just in a vacuum, I couldn't love anymore.
Yeah, see, I mean, if we were still living in the world of 1982 filmmaking, like when Diner came out, there would be a movie by now about an aging boxing promoter who owns a minor league baseball team and it's going terribly, and it would be a laugh riot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to say that, like, I wish I could have seen Lou DiBella's face when this story came out and he went, the 1982 film Diner? What? I haven't thought about that shit in years.
I guess last question this week comes to us from Stacy Jones, who writes, I just wanted to write in before the upcoming White House card and reflect on how surreal it feels that it has all come to this. For months, I've been thinking this event would look like some autocratic dystopian spectacle straight out of Idiocracy, and now I'm finally seeing mainstream attention catch up to my expectations. I wanted to ask, is this the death knell for MMA being taken seriously as a credible sport? I once hoped MMA would eventually become a cultural mainstay alongside boxing, but after this event, I worry it'll be seen as nothing more than a joke, a sport that once held an event to appease the ego of the most corrupt head of state I've seen in my lifetime. I'm honestly concerned that the sport will fade away and be ostracized once the current administration is out of office and serving jail sentences. Well, let's not get carried away here with
You
the jail
imagine a
sentences.
brighter future just around the corner. I don't know if I feel optimistic enough about that, but it has occurred because it's like that question that you brought up earlier about, like, what if we get some great fights
Mhm.
and people come away from that, and they would have to be the kind of great fights that don't confuse or horrify a mainstream public. Would it be possible to come out of this where people are being like, say, this UFC shit is rad? And I do think that always the UFC has an embarrassment of riches in terms of its actual fighting roster. Like that talent is there on any given night, could give you that kind of a night. And yet I also feel like for this specific event, they're going to be doing so much extracurriculars, you might say, that it'll be so difficult and nearly impossible for the fighting itself to cut through that static and be the takeaway for people. That's my big fear.
Yeah, and I share that, and I think that that these are real concerns. The stuff we talked about for the first half of the show are real concerns. I would just point out though that the UFC is probably not going anywhere, right? Like they have this enormous deal with Paramount Plus that will keep them paid and on television for the next 7 years. Is that how long it is? How long's the
Yeah.
deal? Something like
Yep.
that. 7 years. So they'll be around for that. Like I said earlier in the show, it doesn't seem like they are on the verge of any financial trouble. It doesn't seem like they are on the verge of going out of business. It doesn't really seem like they are on the verge of being taken over in terms of the prominence in the culture by any of these competitors. Although, as we talked about, the marketplace is looking more crowded than we have in recent memories. I don't think that those promoters are going to jump up and suddenly become the premier MMA organization in the world. I feel like the best case scenario for MVP is to sort of do quarterly events that capture our imagination. And whether or not that seems likely is a conversation for another day. Is kind of stuff we've talked about before. But and maybe this is what the UFC is gambling on, if they are gambling on anything at all. They're going to be here. They'll be here
Mhm.
7 years from now. Maybe they have already come to grips with the fact, like, hey, we've already got the people we're going to get, right? Like these mainstream people. If you're listening to what David Remnick and Steve Inskeep think, you are either the two of us or you probably don't like MMA, right? So they're probably like, the New Yorker can say what it wants. Rolling Stone can say what it wants. NPR can say what it wants. Seems like we got a real softy from Time Magazine. So at least we got that right. I don't necessarily know that they are worried about the stink of this event sticking to them. And frankly, like maybe 7 years, 5 years down the road, all of this has faded into the past, and the UFC is still being the UFC, and it will be another one of those incidents where we're like, hey, remember years ago when the UFC was super into Trump? Remember that? That was crazy. And we've seen periods like that in MMA come and go. So
Yeah.
maybe that's what they are gambling on.
Well, I guess to that I would just add, what if you were a TKO stockholder, among which includes Donald Trump himself, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just to circle back to Stacey Jones's most corrupt head of state I've seen in my lifetime remark. But imagine you own tons of TKO stock and you heard that internally their thinking was, we've already got all the fans we're going to get.
Yeah.
We've got all the market share we're going to get. We're not growing anymore. We're not picking up any new people. These are the people we got, and that's that. I don't know if you'd be encouraged by that. I don't know if you'd be like, that sounds like a great plan, guys. Let's do that.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably not an apples to apples comparison, but they have been associated with Joe Rogan for an awful long time, right? And Joe Rogan has been viewed distastefully by a large segment of the population. That doesn't seem to have hurt the UFC. So there's that. I'm not trying to make excuses for them. I'm just saying maybe this is what they're thinking coming down
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to do it for listener mail this week. If you have a question, comment, or concern that you would like to air to the podcast in future weeks, you know how to do it. Go to the website, co-mainevent.com. Click the link at the top right-hand corner of the screen that says email the podcast. That'll get you in touch with us. And that's going to do it this week for the Co-Main Event podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate the support. If you're on Patreon, we'll talk to you Wednesday. See, this now my whole
Yeah.
concept of time is going to be messed up since it's
This is
Monday today.
this is how I just even know what day of the week it is what CME show we're doing. So
We're gonna
I'm
have
gonna
to
have to readjust.
we're gonna have to recalibrate. You will tomorrow post the thread for people to get their live chat questions in. Wednesday, we will have the live chat, and then we'll also be over there the rest of the week. So if you're on Patreon, we'll see you every day. If you're not, we'll see you right back here next Monday. Thanks for listening, everybody. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out. I don't know, man. That's I'm too old for this. That's a long road right there. A lot of ups and downs.
You don't
I
think
need to
this old dog can learn some new tricks, which is to say old tricks.
No, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. I'm bringing back the old me. I can promise it. I'm bringing back the old me.
That's a recipe for disaster.